Well, hello, welcome to this episode. In this episode, I'm really excited for you to introduce you to my really good friend, Chris Smith. Now, Chris Smith is one of my closest friends here and from the United States who's going to talk to you about enrolling versus selling. Here's why. Selling has always been hard for most of us because most as practitioners or chiropractors, we have a very difficult time selling because we don't want to sound fake or inauthentic, and really we just have trouble really kind of thinking about selling. So instead, he has this methodology which is about enrolling, and he talks it through the power of stories, about telling stories. And this company he's the founder of Campfire Effect, and Campfire Effect is a huge company who's been able to help entrepreneurs and businesses just like yours to help tell better stories. And in this interview, I talk about how to get rid of the imposter syndrome. I talk about how to, he talks about how to create better stories in engagement and branding and so on and so forth. So this is the intention of what I do. I'm Lawrence Tam, obviously from your Chiro Coach. I'm here to build these episodes to help you build more profit and more freedom. And really, the reality is to help you find entrepreneurs just like Chris, to interview them so that they can help you build your practice and build your brand, your business, and improve your communication through these processes. So I can't wait you to watch this episode, and I hope that you enjoy it. And please leave a comment below and tell us what you think, and give us a thumbs up, and also tell us what you learned from this episode and how you would apply it towards your business. So let's get right on to the show. Let's get to it. Hey guys, I'm here with my really good friend, Chris Smith, the founder of Campfire Effect. Let me tell you a little bit about Chris. He grew up as a cowboy in the state of Arizona, surrounded by storytellers around campfires. And I grew up in Canada, going to cottages surrounded by campfires. I understand what campfire story is all about because we used to, every single night when we used to go to cottage, all we did was watch the fire, and there's always stories that go around. So I can just imagine the cowboy in Chris and the stories that they actually tell. But what's really impressive too is he's obviously a father of 5 beautiful kids, and have raised these kids to be entrepreneurs and business owners. But most importantly, what I got Chris here to talk about today is to help you guys understand is that he has helped entrepreneurs and business owners craft and tell meaningful stories about their brand and their business to help them engage prospects and clients, and making sure that they connect the business, and the entrepreneur connects them to the founder's origins and the purpose and their why. So I met Chris through a group we'll call Mastermind Talks several years ago, and I've heard some of my clients actually have used Chris to help their business as practitioners and chiropractors, to help them translate their brand into a story that's engaging and helps them grow their business. I'm going to talk all about that, about branding, about storytelling. So Chris, welcome to the show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man. I love anytime I get to talk with purpose-driven, heart-centered, mission-focused entrepreneurs, which certainly you are, Lawrence. And, we did one call when the pandemic first happened with your tribe, and it was like super inspiring and just awesome group of people, man. So I was stoked when you gave me another opportunity.
Well, it's really appreciate that you took the time to kind of, help my Nitro clients there. And so that's why I want to come back here and to kind of like, your message shouldn't just be exclusive to my clients. It should be to whoever are watching these videos. So guys, so let's start here. Chris, tell us a little bit about, maybe just tell us your background in terms of how did you take your childhood and those storytellings and then transform to what you do now and helping people tell better stories?
Yeah. So I've always, Lawrence, I don't know why, but even as a young kid, I was fascinated with like my roots. I was fascinated with like the stories of like my great-grandparents and my great-great-great-grandparents, and like family history and genealogy is just probably not a lot of kids are super interested in that, but I was, and I just found this deep sense of connection to my roots. And that's always helped like provide a lot of clarity to me actually in what I should do next, is from like where I've been and where my family's been.
Yeah.
And so I felt this deep sense of connection to my roots, coupled with the fact that, growing up around these cowboy storytellers, I also in 6th grade at the year-end school assembly, when they're giving you awards for like, all this amazing stuff you've accomplished in 6th grade, right before you go into junior high, I got the award for least likely to be found in my seat.
Right.
So the kid before me literally got like most likely to be president of the United States, and then I got least likely to be found in my seat. My mom afterwards was like, "Why did you get that award?" And I was like, "I had a lot of explaining to do to my mom." But the reason was because I was always up out of my seat because I loved not just telling stories and not just talking to people, Lawrence. Like I loved trying to influence people. Like I loved the idea and the challenge of, could I take an idea or a thought and could I share it with someone and influence them to do something? And as a kid, it got me in a ton of trouble, and I influenced my friends to do a lot of things. But I always loved that. And then I remember as a young kid going to the pastor of our church and asking him if I could give a talk in front of the entire congregation. And my mom's like, "No, you're not going to give it." Like she's kind of embarrassed, Yeah. And I'm like, "No, I want to." And he was like, "Yeah, we'll let you do it." And so my mom's like, "You've got to practice. You've got to have notes." And then I told her, I was like, "No, I'm going to go up there with no notes. Like I'm going to memorize it." She's like, "No, you're not." And I did. Like I went up there and I don't know how long the talk was, but I gave a talk. I didn't have any notes. And that feeling of just being able to like share a thought or share an idea that might influence someone. And then when the adults came up to me afterwards, I still remember I was a young kid and they were like, "Wow, like that was a great talk." I don't even know if the talk was great, but they were just acknowledging me.
Yeah.
That was like a drug for me. Like I could have so there's always been that thing there for me. And then as I got older, I went and, that kind of idea of influence and messaging and story, it kind of naturally took me into sales. But I didn't know, Lawrence, that sales was a thing.
Yeah.
Like I was so naive that I didn't know that selling was supposed to have this like stigma to it. Yeah. To me, it was just connecting with people and like influencing them if I believed in it.
Yeah.
And so that's a little bit of the progression
Well, I want to talk about that because I think there's like two groups of people. There's actually three groups of people, right? There's the natural born sellers, or like they go, okay, this is about sales. What's a sales tactic and sell technique? And they're just trying to sell and influence people, right? And then on the other spectrum, usually what I deal with is usually practitioners like chiropractors and, health practitioners. And what they do, they're like, they see those people, I'm like, oh, hell no. Look, I want to be exactly on the opposite end from them. And so if anything, what they do themselves a disservice because they dislike that type of personality so much, they go too far and they go way opposite the other end. And all of a sudden they don't sell at all. And so what I love about your work is that it's not about selling. And I've always been trying to tell people it's selling has just a bad connotation. Selling isn't about like what we think selling is, whether it's in greater mind. Selling is what you just said, which is connecting. It's about connecting with people. And so but when they do that though, here's the challenge I find. We as human beings seem to be wired. And when we say tell stories, they kind of wired to go, okay, well, that means I need to tell a story about us or tell a story about me, right? But reality, and maybe you can expand on this. I think the reality is that people really want to hear, when people, I say the prospect or the patient or whoever their clients really want to hear a story that do want to hear a story, but they want to hear a story that they make them feel like they're part of it somehow. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, 100%, man. Like so what's interesting, Lawrence, and I've shared this with you recently, but when I first started the Campfire Effect, the Campfire Effect was actually going to be a sales and enrollment training company that just happened to use story and messaging as the thing that made the selling and the enrolling unique. But when I started the Campfire Effect around that time, literally every day there was an article being written in Fast Company, Inc., Entrepreneur Magazine about story. And it was such a buzz and it was such a hot topic that we just kind of like got pulled into that, and we were happy and blessed to do it. And I didn't really forget about the selling and the enrolling. It just wasn't a focus, and we were all in on helping people develop their story and their message and like identify their dream client, customer, patient. And what's interesting though is what we now teach, come full circle, we've brought it back to, we teach what we call the enrollment narrative. Yeah. And the enrollment narrative is a story-based approach to selling and enrolling that's void of tactics, that is human, it's authentic, and it feels good. But we specifically call it the enrollment narrative because we actually don't want to sell, we want to enroll. Yep. And that's a distinction that we make. So when we sell, it's about us, it's about our story, and it's about like whatever we got to do to get them to say yes. When we enroll, it's actually about them and it's about their story. Yep. And it's about what's possible for them and us helping them see a possibility greater than what they can currently see. So we teach that one of the things that you do in the enrollment narrative or in an enrollment conversation is you have to help the person coming to you enroll into a possibility that's bigger than what they can currently see.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the hardest lessons that I learned along the way is that people connect with us through their story, probably 75%, and they connect with us through our story, probably the other 25.
Yeah.
But most of us in a sales and enrollment conversation aren't giving people enough time to really tell us their story. And it's why like some of the best therapists in the world, the reason they're the best therapists in the world is because they create a space where people feel safe telling them their story.
Yeah.
And the more I share my story with you, the more I feel connected to you. And the more connected I feel to you, the greater the likelihood is of conversion. Like conversion happens at the point of connection.
Yeah.
And so what really bothers me is when people talk about Campfire Effect is like, oh yeah, that cute, like fluffy, like storytelling thing. Like you guys tell bedtime stories. It's like, no, this is about like driving real conversions and real business in the way that human beings are actually designed and hardwired to like be influenced.
And the skill set there, I believe, you know, what you're saying in order to enroll is that you have to be a really good listener. And that's the thing that people realize, got to recognize is that, you know, in order for you to have really good connection with people and have, you know, make the enrollment count and these conversion is that you have to, actually, you don't have to speak a lot. If anything, you speak less because you're enrolling them into that story and you're blending in their story, or if they see they're themselves. Actually, here's the one thing that I've learned is, you know, we all know, well, most people don't know, but some people don't know, some people do, but the hero's journey, right? We all know the power of the hero's journey in terms of how it applies to movies. I don't want to get into that, but reality is that most people are telling stories where they're the hero, like the business owner. The reality is, though, we're not the heroes. That the patient or the client should be the hero. We're just Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like we should be the mentor through that story. Do you want to kind of expand on that?
Well, what's so funny is like, so the enrollment narrative has 5 parts, and there's a lot of setup before we even get into the 5 parts about the psychology and the intention of which you show up and the energy of which you show up to the enrollment call is like everything, right? So one of the things that we teach, interestingly enough, Lawrence, is that we teach people that you don't show up to an enrollment conversation with the intention of enrolling.
Yes.
Because it's actually, it'll really limit what's possible. And I can go into more of that, but there's a reason why in the enrollment narrative, your story as the practitioner in this case is the last story told in the narrative.
Yes. Right.
And see, a lot of sales training teaches you to like lead out with your story and tell your story first. And I'm like, no.
That's right.
No one cares about your story in the beginning. They care about their story. And so yes, like 100%, like they have to see. And here's the thing. Are the majority of the entrepreneurs listening to this, are they healthcare practitioners, Lawrence?
Yeah, mostly chiropractors and healthcare practitioners. Yeah.
Okay. So I can go into a little bit of the geeky neuroscience of this, maybe that I wouldn't with general entrepreneurs, but like there's 3 parts of the brain: the reptilian, the mammalian, and the neocortex.
Yep.
So what's so funny is sometimes people will say like, oh, Chris, that kind of makes sense. I think that's a cool like theory. I'm like, no, this is not a theory. This is like science. This is like how human beings are hardwired. So the reptilian part of the brain is the part of the brain that's the instinctual part of the brain that's like, hey, do I trust Lawrence? Is he safe? Yeah. Is it okay to connect with him? The mammalian part of the brain is the emotional part of the brain that deals with like, I want to experience more pleasure and less pain and effort. And then the neocortex is the rational like logic, which is like, oh, okay, this makes sense. The problem, if I start a sales and enrollment conversation, Lawrence, and I lead with my story and my information, your neocortex is the thing that has to do work because it's trying to process that information and it's trying to like have this like logic and rationale when the mammalian and the reptilian aren't even satisfied yet. Like, I don't even know if I trust you yet. I don't even know if I connect with you. And yet you're telling me your story. I don't even have a place to receive it from. But if I give you, the prospective patient, the opportunity to tell me your story, it's actually in you telling me your story and you talking to me about your pain, struggle, or challenges that it actually satisfies your reptilian part of the brain, because it's like, man, I just shared a lot with this guy. I must trust him.
Yes.
I must feel safe with him. It's like this powerful, crazy thing that takes place. And it's almost like we unlock those 3 parts of the brain in that order. And then by the time they get to our story and by the time we get to like our recommendation and our treatment plan and how we can help them, they actually have a place to hear it from.
It's so funny. I have a big smile on my face. And the reason why is because that's exactly the same thing on what I teach to my clients. And I just name it different terms. Like I use it as lizard, limbic, and logic, right? Same three brains. And so it's such a powerful thing. And most people, this is where I think a lot of chiropractors and practitioners get it wrong, is that we think that if we just put enough logic in our explanation, in our reports, that they're going to get it. But it's never, of course you need to give some sort of logical thing and data and all evidence or whatever, but where people make the decisions, are they going to make decisions on the limbic part, the emotional part, right?
Yeah.
And then from then they're going to go to the lizard brain to make that decision of like, okay, well, is this, you know, all this stuff. So it's, I'm laughing at it because it's so true. But what I want to go back to is like, you, in order for you to do that, what you said is like the trusting part. I actually just taught my clients this yesterday, was about earning the right, you know, and that's what you're talking about, like leaving your story last and not starting with it. It's that you haven't earned the right yet to tell your story, you know, and every time, you know, if I ever had to do a presentation, you know, whether it be one person, two, or 1,000 people, I never want to start off like, hi, I'm Lawrence Tam, because it's like, I haven't earned the right for you to like, who cares about Lawrence Tam, right? Totally. Who cares about Chris Smith? And you need to know like, why should I even listen to this guy first? If I get, and that's the part, if you can satisfy that part, then you go at the next level, then you can kind of go, then maybe you have a chance to explore that story. So let me ask you this. What do you think, why do you think it's so difficult for doctors, chiropractors, health practitioners to translate or tell, you know, this story? Like, you know, in chiropractic, we have this chiropractic story. Why do you think it's so hard for them to translate it to the public?
Yeah, I think for a number of reasons. And this is something that, like, this is the thing we solve for so many of them. For a lot of them, Lawrence, they actually have this limiting belief and this lie that they told themselves, or that's been told to them, that is like, I just don't think my story matters.
Yes.
I don't think, what was the name of that woman, Lawrence, when we did the call with your team, that like shared with us that like she got
yes,
emotional.
Carmen.
What's that?
Carmen.
Yeah. She's like, I pulled out of her this most amazing story, and I was like, Carmen, how often do you tell that to like your patients or prospective patients or your team? She's like, never. And there's people on the call that had known her for, I don't know, maybe years.
Years.
They're like, Carmen, I've known you for years, and now I see you in a completely, and Carmen had a little bit of this, like, I just don't think people care. I don't think people want to hear that story. But that's actually, I think what it is more than that. I think that's what we say on the surface is like, well, people just don't care about my story. I think it's like, we're maybe afraid of being seen.
Well, I think a combination of that. Let's dive into that, because I think psychology wise, I think it's really important for people to understand. It's like, I think for me, I know for myself, it is that. It's like, I don't know if I want to be seen, but it's also too, there's always that fear of judgment, right? That fear, like, what if that story is going to make me look bad?
Yeah.
Or what if that story is going to judge me and put me in, pigeonhole me in a certain way? How people think of me, and will that ruin everything I've built so far? Totally. Even though everything I've built so far is on a mask, you know, it's fake anyways. And so like that, I think it's like an internal challenge. And then the other one, I think, is also like, what if that story's make people, I think people resist it because they think it's all about themselves. And so it's ego, and they don't want to show off the ego.
So that's what I was just going to say, Lawrence. Anytime someone's like, well, what if they think this about me? Or what if it makes me look this way? Or what if the problem is you're making it all about you.
Yes.
There's this real power and this real freedom when you realize my story, and it sounds crazy, my story isn't about me. I'm simply telling my story to allow people the opportunity to connect with me, because if without the connection, there can't be a conversion, or even if there is a conversion, the likelihood is not a strong one, and they probably aren't going to stick, or it's going to take a lot longer to convert them. So my story is simply a way to serve people. And when you have that realization of like, wow, like, you know, I share a lot about the struggles my family has gone through around addiction and suicide and things like that. And a lot of people are kind of surprised, like, wow, Chris, I'm surprised you would share that much about your family. And it's like, well, I finally have realized that none of those stories are about me. It's about like, if I share these stories, they could help somebody. If I share these stories, they could serve someone and make a difference. And the other thing is, if I don't share the story, then it's like I've left out the beginning of the movie and people don't have context, and therefore the movie doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So I think that's one reason we have all these, one of the reasons basically is we make up a story about our story.
Yeah.
We make up a story like it doesn't matter.
It's always about story. Well, I think what you're saying is, well, I have an analogy, what is basically called flip the spotlight, right? So like it's such a powerful thing, is that I went through that phase for a lot, where, you know, when you get on stage and you do the slick presentation and like, yeah, pat on the back, everybody cheers and claps. And it's like, well, yeah, I did a good job. And I realized I worry about what people think of me, how I dress, but then it was because, like you said, it's all about me.
Yeah.
But when I got to a place of going, you know what, what if I change the spotlight? What if I change the spotlight to the audience? And now everything is about them. And so any story that I share, it's like, it's relevant to how it makes me look. It's what you're saying. To summarize, is that it's all about them. It's about service to those people in front of them. And that story is just a bridge for us to have a deeper connection.
Yeah. Probably one of the coolest testimonials I've ever gotten from a client. And it wasn't even about ROI or revenue increase. And like, I love those ones, but she said, I worked with Chris Smith and the Campfire Effect, and she's a really successful business coach, runs a really big company, works with thousands of entrepreneurs in her community that they serve every year. She said, the most profound thing that came out of the Campfire Effect for me is it took all the performance and all of the performing out of my speaking and selling.
Yep.
Because when it is about you, it's a performance, and it's about looking good and sounding right. And it can still be an awesome talk and people will high five you and pat you on the back, but like they can't connect with it. And again, without connection, conversion is tough.
Yes.
I think another reason why healthcare practitioners struggle to tell their story, Lawrence, is they're confused on what differentiation truly is. And here's what I mean by that. So many healthcare practitioners have been taught, man, you got to differentiate yourself. You got to differentiate yourself because, like, let's face it, like most healthcare practitioners are commodities. They're in a commoditized space, right? Like, just like me in my business, I'm a commodity. But differentiation isn't, and this is a big thing that I've learned in my own practice, in my own business, and then helping with our clients. Differentiation is not what makes you unique. Differentiation is what results that you get for your patients that are unique. So I used to think that differentiation was all about like me and like what makes me unique and what makes me different. Again, no one cares about me to a degree, right? What they care about is, so there's a big difference between me trying to differentiate Chris Smith and Campfire Effect by talking about Chris Smith and Campfire Effect versus differentiating Chris Smith and Campfire Effect by talking about the results that we get for our clients that no one else can.
And there leads to another story, which is hard for people to like kind of rationalize, which is that the imposter comes out, but do my results actually matter? And I think this is where we need to kind of shift from knowing to believing and owning that what you do, like every single one of you watching this, what you do matters to your clients, and they have changed their life because of you. And it's really hard for us to kind of own that. But when you can own that, I love that concept, man. That's a really good shift, because I know it's taken me a lot of years to recognize that, if I just start talking about marketing skills or whatever, then I'm just a commodity like anybody else. Anybody could do that. And there's probably way better people doing it, but no one can, get the results by changing the person like me using my methodology or what I do, because it's not about me. It's about each individual client of mine is very, very different. How we get there, we take a different path. Some people we take a plane, it was really fast. Some people we have to kind of stroll and take a long walk, right? To get there. And it's unique. And that's the thing. I love that concept about results. So what do you think, starting with brand, like in terms of telling a story of brand? I know there's obviously much deeper, and I'm not trying to simplify it, but what do you think the first step as a practitioner should take right now that they could utilize to kind of get started, embracing this, embracing it, whether it be a mindset thing or something they actually do or say? Where would you start?
Yeah. So there's a reason why there's a specific order to this. And we've had practitioners ask us, because when we talk about our offering, we say, look, we help practitioners do three things: clarify their message, specify their market, enroll their dream patients. That simple. And they'll say, like, is that order that way for a reason? I'm like, so glad you asked that, because yes, here's one of the mistakes that we see a lot of practitioners making, Lawrence, is they're allowing their market to create their message instead of allowing their message to create their market. Interesting. So a lot of practitioners, we're all guilty of this. We're all tempted to go an inch deep and a mile wide and just chase everything and go after every opportunity. And a lot of times, Lawrence, it's like, I ask a practitioner, like, hey, who's your dream patient? They're like, whoever has money. It's like,
well, chiropractors have this, chiropractors like everybody with the spine. It's like, oh no.
Everyone with a spine and money, right? And a credit card. And it's like, I get that thinking, because sometimes I get there. It's like, I want to, and not only opportunistically do I think everyone's in my market because I can make a lot of money, but also I want to help everyone, right? But man, if there was an area where you've got to go from an inch deep and a mile wide to an inch wide and a mile deep, it's in that idea of knowing exactly who your dream patient is. Here's what's interesting though. I cannot find out who my dream patient is unless I know what my message and my story is. Because if I get really clear on my unique differentiated message from a place of the results I get for people and how my life has led me here, well, then if it's like, well, if that's my message, then there's a certain group of people out in the world that would be really attracted to that message. And there's going to be a lot of people that wouldn't be attracted to that message, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, if this is my message, then the next question is logically, well, then who's that message for?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I would say to practitioners listening to this right now is give yourself permission and grant yourself some space to, for just a second, forget about all the different opportunities you're chasing. Forget about all the different like possibilities of different, niches and like people you could serve, and step away from all that and come over here in the message and just ask yourself a few of these questions that we ask all of our practitioners is, what do I want to be known for? Which I get is not like it's not like a casual, like Lawrence and I are out to dinner. I'm like, hey, buddy, by the way, what do you want to be known for? It's like, that's a deep confronting, like,
it's hard to answer, right? It's hard because like you got to fight that internal battle. But I like what you start off the conversation by saying is like, give yourself permission. And this is where you really do need to give yourself permission to let go of the fears and imposter syndrome that you have in order for us to think about those things. And I just want to remind people, when you think about, I think I heard this from Seth Godin, where he says, it's just that you say something like, I want to be the best chiropractor in the world, right? And that's scary to say that out loud, even if it's your own head, right? The thing is, what he said, what I love, it goes, the world doesn't necessarily mean the whole entire earth. Like the world could just be your world, whatever world you define your world is. And I love that. That's brilliant. Like that is such a brilliant, because it's what your definition of the world. So you can be the best in your world, and your world could just be, 10 kilometers radius. Like that is your world that you live in and want to practice in. So, languaging and the words and the definition of the intention behind it is what's really important here.
Yeah, and we teach a similar concept in like, and through the process, when someone's like really uncovering that thing they want to be known for and recognizing like, man, this is the true outcome of our work. This is the thing that differentiates us the most. We have these clear 4 questions that before we'll even get into the shaping of the messaging statements, we have what we call the core 4 messaging statements that serve as a foundation for all of your messaging, marketing, branding, selling, storytelling moving forward, can all be derived off these 4 messaging statements, which is pretty cool. But before we get to the core 4, we have the clear 4. And the clear 4 are meant to be super confronting questions. And some of the questions are, what do you want to be known for? What's the true outcome of your work? All caps true. Not what you do, but the outcome. And then we ask like, what's the one thing that differentiates you the most? And then in that, we get them to declare what they're the best in the world at. And it's so amazing because every healthcare practitioner immediately goes, well, I'm not the best in the world at this. Like there's other people that are better than me. Like, whoa, it's like they're so and I'm like, wait. First of all, whoever said that you being the best in the world at something had something to do with someone else? Like we immediately go to comparison. Yeah. And I'm like, what I believe is that you're the best in the world because there's only one of you with your experience and your background and your particular methodology or process that could get the result for that patient that only you could get. That's true for all of us. So all of us can be the best in the world at that thing. But a lot of us think about like, I'm the best in the world. They think that means ego. What I think is if I'm the best in the world at something, that just means I can serve a lot of people in a really profound way.
Yeah. And that's a great mind shift, and a mindset shift and paradigm to be able to see that. And I think what's important for people to recognize is that these are not easy questions. Like these are really hard, difficult questions. And I'll put my hand up and say, like, when I hear those questions, I've done, when I've gone through these questions myself, they're like that voice inside my head, definitely pops up. So I'm just like letting you guys know, the audience know, like, you're not the only one, right? The fear isn't like, just because, I can do this or say this, trust me, those fears pop up. I'm like, who am I? Like, who are you to say this? And like, so be okay with that voice. Yeah. Right. Just sit with it, with that voice, but just allow it to quieten it down and answer the question while that voice is kind of speak at you. Don't let the voice influence your answer. Just allow you to answer. Let your true self come forward. So I think those are great questions, a great starting point. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, you bet.
So tell me, how do people, how do people enroll and engage with you in regards to the Campfire Effect? Like, is there a methodology? I know it's a methodology. So like, how do people now, practitioners, and how would they benefit from what you do?
Yeah. So we have a 90-day coaching program called the Accelerator, and it's really designed because what's interesting, Lawrence, in our own journey, we realized along the way, the analogy I use is like practitioners were coming to us looking for a pencil. But because I'm like most entrepreneurs, I gave them a dry erase board, 11 colored markers, and an eraser. And they were like, this is all amazing. I don't know what to do with like 80% of it, but thank you. It really was amazing. But I just really needed to know how to do three things. And they kept telling us this over the years. I need to know how to clarify my message so I differentiate myself. I need to know how to specify exactly who my dream patient is. And then I need to be able to enroll them confidently so that when I present the treatment plan, they say yes. I'm like, oh. So we've got it down to really like that's what we focus on, and we believe like we're the best in the world at that, right? There's a lot of people that are better at other things with healthcare practitioners, but when it comes to like helping them clarify their unique differentiated message, specify their dream patient, and then teach them how to powerfully enroll them in a story-based, you know, void of tactics way that feels good. And really that's it. And so the promise that we make to people is like, look, we promise that you'll have more clarity, confidence, and alignment around your message, your market, and how to enroll them than you've ever had in the entire time you've been a practitioner, or we'll just give you your money back. But it is confronting. Like that's what we promise people. We say like the reason it's called the virtual 2-day we put on that kicks off the 90-day coaching. The reason we call it an intensive is because it's intense. Yeah, like because what's interesting, Lawrence, is we could just have practitioners come, dig in a little bit, do a little bit of confronting work, and then wordsmith something that they literally would look and be like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And give them a tagline and give them an elevator pitch and all the stuff that our industry talks about that I don't believe in really, but like we could give them all that and they'd be like, they'd feel really good about it and it would make some difference for them.
Yeah. I call it a whirlpool experience. Like it's just a jacuzzi, I think a friend of mine, Jim Temple, talks about it's a jacuzzi experience, right? It's like this period of like, oh, it was good in the moment. And then I do have a problem with mission statements and vision statements. Sometimes it's like that whole point of like, you spend all these hours and days trying to craft it and you create it. But the problem with those types of things is that it only meant something to you when you wrote it, but then you never revisit it. It never actually has like real meaning. And totally. I always encourage my clients today, if you're going to create a vision statement or a mission statement, it better move you every day. Like it literally has to move you every day in your soul. Without it, it's like, it's just the freaking words on a wall.
Totally. Like if your story and your message doesn't lead to significantly greater conversions and your confidence in like when it comes to when it actually matters in the sales and the enrollment conversation, like it doesn't matter. And what's interesting, Lawrence, is this 90-day coaching program used to just be the 2-day intensive. So we would put on a 2-day intensive, no more than 9 entrepreneurs, really intimate. Yeah. And they would leave those 2 days. And we do a lot of prep work. They come in, most of the times they come in with more clarity around their story and the message than they've ever had before we even start the 2 days because of the prep work and the training calls we have ahead of time. Then the 2 days, it's not learning by doing, it's not learning by just getting more teaching. It's learning by doing. We throw them into the deep end of the swimming pool and they learn how to swim and they actually do it. They have to tell the story and present it. We used to not offer the 90-day coaching program. We now offer the additional follow-on 90 days. And we don't charge any more for it, but the 90 days is one, force them to implement. So it's like you not getting a return on investment from this is not an option. Yeah. And then 2, they have so many questions oftentimes. And this is where they can, again, if they're not careful, we realized we were giving people so much clarity and then letting them go that they were actually getting inch wide, inch deep, mile wide again, because they saw all these possibilities, what they could do with this more powerful story and message. And so we're there to like kind of keep them on track and be like, no. Here's how you're going to implement this. We might start with your website first. We're going to punch all the way through and finish that. Then we really help them with implementation and refinement because one of the things that's also this interesting, Lawrence, is we have doctors all the time that come to us and like, hey, Chris, I'm trying to decide if I should do a new branding strategy or if I should redo my website or this. And I tell them, I said, hey, you know what's best for your business, but I can promise you this. Once you go through this process, everything about your marketing is going to change. Like once you go through this process, everything about your website so you got to do it. But I would really encourage you to do this because we've had clients who've done the opposite, gone through this and been like, I just spent, X number of dollars on a big marketing campaign or branding strategy, and I'm going to go redo all of it now.
Well, that's actually what I was going to say is that, I always have a thing with coaching clients is that, if you're not willing to change, if you don't want, like if you really want to change, then go get coaching. But if you really don't want to change, like, don't get coaching. Like, don't go into any of this stuff, because it'll just be a course. It'll just be a very expensive course that you sit, on the side there, and it would just be like sitting on a bookshelf over there. And like, that's not good. What you want to do is you have to make a decision before you make that decision, but know, like, am I willing to kind of fully commit into changing and embracing, the expansion of who you are. That's what coaching and what your program does. So I really encourage people. I cannot highly I highly recommend Chris, just not because for his program is good, because I also know his integrity and I know him as a person, and who he has helped, and my clients, and more importantly, like the people he has helped has also transpired. And I know he comes from pure intention and pure heart. So guys, go check out. Where do people find out?
You can go to thecampfireeffect.com and read lots of testimonials from different practitioners. I was just telling Lawrence, like, we really, like, to me, I love the story and messaging. Obviously, I love helping people identify their dream patient. I freaking love though the enrollment side, like, because that to me is where it's just like, it's where there's so many like misunderstandings about what sells an enrollment is. There's so many practitioners that just think it's a necessary evil, and it's like, I mean, that's where we have an opportunity to shift people's paradigms and like really like. I was telling Lawrence, like, we had a naturopathic doctor last month that was struggling with sales, like doing a good job on the lead generation, hates selling, self-admittedly. And he just shot a testimonial of us telling us, like, I hated selling. Last month, he enrolled 16 out of 17 patients. But
That's
here's
awesome.
what he said. He said, Chris, it felt good. See, I think there's a lot of people, Lawrence, that sell people. It doesn't feel good selling, but they get through it. And it doesn't feel good buying it, but they get through it.
Yeah. It's like just a number. Yeah.
What if there was a way to sell, though, where it's like, you felt good selling that way, they felt good buying that way? It's like, So anyways,
it's a win-win. It's a win-win situation, and that's what we really kind of want to create. And this is what we need, more practitioners like that, because the reality is that, let's face it, within all health practitioners, typically we are shy. We shy away from these type of conversations, and it's really important that we need to get better at it, not just for your practice and for your own income and profit, but more importantly is that for the profession to thrive, I think we need to engage better. We need to learn how to communicate better. And this is one of the ways to be able to engage. Like, that's what my big thing around what I talk about is always constantly communicating and connecting with patients, because they create a groundswell movement to move our profession to the next level. So Chris, man, thank you so much for taking your time and your knowledge and your expertise to kind of share your story with us. And guys, go check out campfireeffect.com. It's obviously Chris, like I said, I cannot recommend his course and what he does for people. And I know the benefits that he has provided for a whole bunch of people around the world. So go check it out. Chris, again, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate your time. And I can't wait to kind of see you, man, give you a hug sometime, but we'll have to wait for this pandemic to be over. But soon, hopefully in 2021, we'll be able to kind of catch up. So again, Chris, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.
It's all well and good to have a successful practice, but in the grand scheme of things, I want to make an impact.
The biggest thing that it's enabled me to do is to develop better relationships with people.
The reason I joined was because I was feeling a bit isolated in practice.
Now I feel like I have a tribe.
Lawrence definitely provides a really good insight from outside of my square.
You really start to find your true identity. When you're part of a group that supports you, which is what I feel Nitro does, you get some quality results.
I was caught up in the hustle side of chiropractic, so now having that freedom, still being just as busy and even more successful.
I think that we all elevate and rise together.
It really allows me to face my own fears and blockages.
It's about being with like-minded people, but being about people who want the same thing, which is like this willingness to support each other and hold each other accountable at the same time.
We went from seeing an average of 140, 150 people to seeing now 250 people.
I do have the confidence to, have that voice and make those changes, and I definitely wouldn't have been able to do that without Nitro.
It's not trying to create me to be something else. It's trying to create me to be the best version of me.